Yeah, when we set up the agenda of today, we were really wondering how to do it, either starting with the overview and then moving to the country discussions or doing it vice versa. But now as we are coming to the end of the mini conference, I'm convincing also myself that this is the right direction to do, because then you see the summary as well. So you already know several backgrounds information from the project, and let's try to summarize these, including the project number of the Erasmus project, which is visible in the slide. So the starting point, as you already know that, and it was mentioned several times, is the Finnish model, but none of us basically explain why the Finnish model was taken. This was not by accident, but it was a careful planning or a happenstance if you want to immobilize your knowledge about career guidance theories. Why? Because the Finnish model was just published 2 years back in time when we had the IVG conference in Vaspila. They introduced it. They mapped the Finnish model against the mentioned NICE model. NICE was a academic network in Europe. I was also involved, basically led by German colleagues, including Professor Schiersmann, very important mentor in this field, and they established the model. This is what you are using still, or the baseline for the Stobek model. So it was mapped to that, and also IAVG, International Association for Vocational Guidance and Education, we referred several times, also had a model which was refurbished a couple of years back in time. And then the other outstanding model, I think at the global level, because of several other engagement, more or less, they are also screening what is actually happening outside Europe, is the Canadian one. So if you would ask me, as a professional, I would say that the Finnish and the Canadians are the most updated ones. The reason why I picked the Finnish, because it's European, although the Canadians are the most European North Americans, so we love them, but then the Finnish model still, with all of these tiny details, there are differences, but still it's a European model. And the other end, that how the Finnish model was built is based on a reflection of more than 400 practitioners in the country, coming from different sectors. I think this piece of information was not mentioned before. So it's an evidence-based model, feed, and then developed based on the voices also of the professionals. Again, this is culturally very different how we are doing business in Central Eastern Europe, because somebody in one of the ministry in Bratislava or in Budapest commission a piece of work, and when it's done, then it's done. So public consultation be something slightly different beyond the countries. Okay, then let's closing this footer. So this is why we picked this model, and also the structure is very different from the models we used to develop in Central Eastern Europe, going back in the 100 or more in the years of history of psychology. All the time we are referring to psychology, and we are aware that psychology is the queen of social sciences still in this region, although the pedagogical domain is much, much, much older than the psychology could ever going to be. But don't open this butter from between the two fields, or starting with P in English. So what we can see in the Finnish model, that the first element is about professionalization, the second is about the client interactions, and the third about the system level. There is one more framework, European framework. I was also involved when I developed in 2009, just to recall it to our common memories. The 2009 competence framework coming from the CEGAAF. I did not mention that, but from 2009, we had a framework where we also did the mapping exercise all around European universities. That time we compared the professional standards in the master degree and bachelor degree programs. So that's the rationale. That's then the strong rationale why we picked the Finnish model. And the other elements were already mentioned, and all of the elements of the Finnish model, including the background documents, and including the self-evaluation tool for the professionals in order to develop their own career plans and their own CPD. So here is a pedagogical outcome and the idea behind is available online. So if you want to test yourself, if you want to check your own competencies in the certain fields, then you can do it online, and it's available in English as well. I see this is a very, very unique departure point. So the documents which were analyzed, these were mentioned already, but now you have a full list of the documents, and we have to confess that as the background of these documents are very different. So we regarded the Romanian presentation that Romania, thanks probably mentioning the Romanian name Andrea Sidani, who's very famous at the global level as well, who basically, I think, was a key motor behind exporting the U.S. credential system to Romania, moved to one direction, then Hungary to another, and I'm not going through all of these big countries in the project, but we took very different angles of the same story, and then some of these documents are only, I think the Slovak is the standalone one in that regard, because it's really trying to address lifelong guidance based on the 9 checklist of competencies. But all the other 3 are targeting certain areas. So the vet sector, the school system, the public and the Romanian is definitely for the UNROP, so the Romanian Public Employment Service. So we are taking different angles. So therefore, we have to admit that you can't completely compare apple with a banana and so on, whatever image into that. Okay, so it was already mentioned how we analyzed it. So we had a research guessing ground about this and then drafted papers on that. And then we went through an atlas T, thanks to the involvement of our project colleagues. And then based on the atlas T, we set up certain type of grouping codes. And these codes, so we had like 24 thematic clusters, more than almost close to 200 different type of individual codings. And now it looks like very nicely in the chart. So we ended up with this situation. So when you are comparing the 5 protocols to each other, it looks like that. Again, the scientific paper hopefully is coming out to follow this, and we try to distillate what we learned. Just take it as a work in progress. So we end up with the 24 categories. This is what you already heard. And then the tricky part is what I'm just trying to showcase you. I only got to pinpoint some very interesting element. Which of the thematic areas which were overemphasized in the Central, South, and Eastern European region? You can see the frequency here. So one is definitely the professionality of career counseling, taking career guidance as a profession. So we are approaching these protocols, and again, I have to admit that the Slovak is a slightly different, probably a step forward to the Nordic or the other European countries model. It talks a lot about the role of the professionals, and much less about the system, and even less about the user perspective. We are not going into detail because of the lack of time. I just highlighted a few of these we read. So still, career information, just a footnote in the footnote. So this is how the British started. They made the English back in time. In England, they used to call this occasion IAG, which was information, advice, and guidance. They're not calling in this way anymore. But there was a robust emphasis on information provision. And I see this spirit, this bad habit, is still remaining in our region. We believe that we have to provide information. So you want to provide information as a career counselor because you believe that you have more clients. And then your 15-year-old daughter approach you and telling you something you never heard about. It was happening yesterday. So somehow we are not really to keep up with the time and the change way how information is distributed in the information age. So we don't have the monopoly anymore as career counselor of information, and it should have a lot of implication how we are delivering guidance and counseling. The other issue here when we are making making a mistake and believe that labor market information systems or are equivalent, or education systems, information provision system are equivalent with career guidance and counseling, but they are not. Many decision makers are making the same mistake. The client assessment was already mentioned several times as an issue, and then the professionality, so highlighting the career counselor's professionality in this bad regard is also mean as an authority, even against the client, against the user, is very strong in all of these protocols. We visualize the outcomes in different ways, and then just showcasing how it looks like when we are comparing, for example, the track protocol and then pinpointing the three. So the three colors are basically the key angles of the original Finnish model. I'm not going to deposit all of these because of the time. Probably trying to see a few more words for some more highlights. Yeah, I think what is visually clear here, again, the very robust understanding on the professional competence of career counselors. And then even overemphasizing their roles. And on the other angle, on the other side of the slide, you can see that when we are talking about educational guidance systems, those are not as important. So very important that the counselor should be its authority as a professional, which we like to follow professionals. This is why they went to university. But then the level of understanding of the systems is lagging behind. Again, I just want to connect it with the theory of guidance and counseling. This is why we are teaching the system framework theories, right? So Mary McMahon and all the others. So without understanding the systems you make as a counselor, you can empower yourself, you can empower your client. Because in the end of the day, I can go back to Krumbolz and Walke's suggestion as a university lecturer was that never dream about a career, because you can't pick a career, you can't choose a career. This bullshit. Because career is based on circumstances, so you have to build your capacity and you have to build a situational awareness and understanding your surroundings, understanding your networks. So this is the role of career education. Probably using the word of career education in that sense is even for meaning. In the meantime, is still trying to fix on diagnostic and once in a lifetime decisions. Okay, still a lot of emphasis, as I said, on information provision. Even the way how we are delivering guidance services in this country is very significant. It's still very often the case that you have to visit the counselor. You pay a visit to the counselor. The counselor is not visiting you because he or she is an author. Sitting in the pedagogical center, this is my fortification, this is my fortress, I'm the owner of this land, piece of land, so you have to visit me if you see for advice. And then not too many examples, but for example, trade unions would offer guidance for employed people, or we would offer guidance in neighborhood programs, and many other examples are coming from different European practices. Coming to the end of the presentation, just a few more hints here which are important for checking which slides are more relevant for you. So summarizing the first findings and still saying that this is a work in progress. So in a few words, and then more the birdies, the Handelian document which we analyze probably is more a theoretical piece of work, a list of competencies for those psychologists or pedagogy, but I think mainly they are psychologists nowadays working in the pedagogical centers, providing very limited understanding of career guidance ecosystems and the nature of career building and the relations with the labor market and many other elements. Again, this is one available protocol. We noted that there are more than 100. This was the one we took The Romanian one is very much fragmented in professionalization. I think that's mainly being with the origin, because it's for a public employment service, if I'm not mistaken. So this is in Hungary what we used to call an Hungarian word, munkavállalási tanácsadó, doesn't pay the standard more, it's a standard of profession. So like an employment counselor. Then in the Slovak one, which we already noted, this is probably the most action-oriented and practice-oriented. Now you can understand the origin. How is it linked with the NANISET? Also in Hungary, back in time when the NANISET handbook was published, University of Gödöllő tried to engage with this and try to move it forward. I think it's never succeeded, never happened in Hungary. Also, questionable point are the eyes and the ears are openly discreet when we are discussing what's the role of guidance and counseling. And the last is last but not least is the Czech document. Again, the origin of this document, that this was definitely written as an order of the Ministry of Education for pedagogical centers. So the departure points, the eschatology of these documents also important to be understood when we start analyzing those. And the idea was to establish a professional, we change now the wording, occupational standard for those acting as career advisors in the Czech system. Again, this is not applicable for the public employment service or other domains. So still what we call like an overarching, like an umbrella strategy, what you call lifelong guidance, it's not really visible in these documents. And probably this is the last slide for today before we finish. So what can be the key takeaway, still work in progress, about the 4-country plus the Finnish system or the Finnish document? And as Thomas said, we don't know what is the daily reality in Finland. We check these documents. So we are not telling you that the grass is greener in Finland for the BTs, but we just analyze the document. It's so in the 4 countries, the approaches are still very much fragmented. The professional association in the field, although we are very strongly trying, almost a decade, or some of us has more than a decade long history as an association, we has very limited impact, so voices are not so strong and we not really take them into action when the ministries or different authorities rerouting the role of guidance and counseling. Very clearly, the Czech and Slovak documents can be taken or can be understood as comprehensive national models, even mentioning again that the Czech model is only for the school system and then the general education. We all understand this conceptual academic orientation of a Finnish document. Therefore, I need to explain these 2 words in another few words. What it actually means that when you are acting as an academic, like our Finnish colleague does, in adopting or establishing national standards, you are aware of the background of guidance and counseling. You know the theory of guidance and counseling, but the rationale how you are drafting such a document is not showcasing your academic knowledge for your students, but support the other professionals on CPD. It's a very different approach, than talking a Latin word ex cathedra today. And then the last comment is about probably the Hungarian and the Romanian documents. Very clearly, because we made this decision to analyze these documents, these are sub-prayers. So to understand lifelong guidance as a overarching system in these countries, obviously wouldn't be enough only to analyze these reports. But then, as you mentioned, then now you are on the way to make further stuff. So that's probably all where we are now at the moment. Thanks for your kind